FDA has said hydroxychloroquine should not be used outside of a hospital setting or
No, that's not what I was told. No, there was a false study done where they gave it to very sick people, extremely sick people, people that were ready to die. It was given by obviously not friends of the administration. And the study came out, the people were ready to die. Everybody was old, had bad problems with hearts, diabetes, and everything else you can imagine. So they gave it. So immediately when it came out, they gave a lot of false information. Just so you understand, great studies came out of Italy on hydroxy. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right? Great studies came out, and the combination of the three. But we had some great studies come out. Italy, France, Spain, ourselves, many doctors, many doctors came out and they said, it's great. Now, you have to go to a doctor. I have a doctor in the White House. I said, what do you think? And it's just a line of defense. I'm just talking about as a line of defense. I'm dealing with a lot of people. Look at all the people in the room. You know, I'm the president and I'm dealing with a lot of people. And it's a very inexpensive drug. It's almost pennies. It's very inexpensive. And it's been out for close to 70 years for a couple of different things, right? Lupus and malaria and even arthritis, they say. But I think it's worth it as a line of defense, and I'll stay on it for a little while longer. I'm just very curious myself, but it seems to be very safe. But that study was a phony study put out by the VA. You may want to talk about that. I mean, we could talk about that if anybody wants to, and maybe I'd ask Alex to talk about then. If you would introduce our great talented head of the VA and let him say a couple of words. But that was a phony study, and it's very dangerous to do it. The fact is, people should want to help people, not to make political points. It's really sad when they do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so hydroxychloroquine has been approved by the FDA for decades here in the United States for the treatment of malaria, for the prevention of malaria, treatment of lupus, treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. And the system we have here in the United States that is once a drug has been approved and on the market, a doctor in consultation with the patient may use it for what we call off-label purposes, which are indications that are not yet proven and not yet in the label. And this is the right to try president. He, for the first time, got the historic right to try legislation for experimental therapies, but that applies to our existing regime, which is approved products may be used in the judgment of a physician in consultation with their patient. As the president said, and I'll ask Secretary Wilkie to talk a bit about the VA study, there's been some studies around the use of hydroxychloroquine later in disease progression, but we are still working on some controlled studies earlier in the disease progression to see if we can measure the effectiveness of it in preventing the replication of the virus and spread in mild to moderate cases rather than the more serious, and that data is still pending.
And it's got, well, it's got very good reviews, very good from many doctors, many doctors. Secretary, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to clear up something that the media has not reported accurately. That was not a VA study.
Can you hear him? Because I think it's important. You asked the question.
Yeah, that was
you
not.
You want to listen? Because I don't even think you're listening.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Why don't you listen to him?
That was not a VA study. Researchers took VA numbers, and they did not clinically review them. They were not peer-reviewed. They did not even look at what the president just mentioned, the various comorbidities that the patients who were referenced in that study had. I also want to echo what the Secretary of HHS said. The instructions I received from the president were very clear, and that was to preserve and protect life. Those of us who've had a military life, some of us around this table, we've been taking this drug for years. As the president mentioned, the Department of Defense and VA have been using it for 65 years. On any given day, VA uses 42,000 doses of this drug. And what we did when this virus first hit us was to use every means necessary to help preserve life. We believed that the Congress was right, and the president signed legislation to protect life, the right to try. And we did this in consultation not only with the families of those veterans, but we did this in consultation with our doctors under FDA guidelines. So I want to knock down the phony story that this is somehow the VA going back on what the president told us to do, which was to use every means possible to protect and preserve the lives of our veterans. And I think, as the president mentioned, we've seen in many cases across this country. In fact, I was on the news the day that the governor of New York was asking you for tens of thousands of doses.
That's right.
We are doing everything we can to protect the lives of our veterans, and this is one of the means that we used.
Thank you. Hydroxychloroquine is used by thousands and thousands of frontline workers so that hopefully they don't catch this horrible disease or whatever you want to call it. It is a terrible virus. It's a terrible thing. And a lot of people are taking it. A lot of doctors are taking it. A lot of people swear by it. It's gotten a bad reputation only because I'm promoting it. So I'm obviously a very bad promoter. If anybody else were promoting it, they'd say this is the greatest thing ever. But because of me. So a lot of doctors swear by it. I think we can say that, Mr. Secretary. A lot of doctors think it's great. But the one thing that is true, one way or the other, whether you like it or not, it's been around for 70 years. Unbelievably effective for malaria and for lupus, and probably effective for arthritis. And what has been determined is it doesn't harm you. It's a very powerful drug, I guess, but it doesn't harm you. And so I thought as a frontline defense, possibly it would be good. And I've had no impact from it. I feel the same. I haven't changed. I don't think too much. And at some point, you know, I won't take it. Might be soon, might be a little bit. It doesn't seem to have any impact on me, but it seems to be a extra line of defense. And it's gotten tremendous reviews from some people, including many, many doctors all over the world. And you should look at some of the studies. They've been amazing, some of the studies. But that's up to people, and it's up, I think, strongly recommend to people with their doctor's advice and acknowledgement. Okay? Okay.
Cabinet taking that regimen, Mr. President?
Say it.
Is anyone else in your cabinet taking?
I don't know. We will make America great again.